All right, before we get into the podcast, let's start with the rigmarole. If you guys are new to this podcast, it uploads every single Saturday. We give you all the NFL news you need to know about. We just go through news stories and across all 32 teams, really. So yeah, let's get into this. There's some interesting stuff here. This first news story comes from you straight hot from ESPN, talking about Michael Floyd. Always mess up his name and say Malcolm Floyd. But Michael Floyd is obviously a super talented guy out of Notre Dame. One of the more talented receivers we've seen in a long time. Obviously, the Arizona Cardinals end up drafting him to pair with Larry Fitzgerald. It worked out. I would say he had his best season in 2015 when the Cardinals went to the NFC Championship game. But it really never worked out. Two prospects that really look like they were going to be dominant NFL players on the next level were Michael Floyd. I always say Malcolm Floyd. Michael Floyd and Justin Blackmon both struggled with their own vices. Obviously, Michael Floyd's in the news because of his alcoholism that he's dealing with, and then Justin Blackmon got bounced out of the league due to his marijuana addiction. So it's unfortunate because both players, even when Justin Blackmon actually played, he was really good. He just needed the same thing with Josh Gordon. All three of those guys, more so Justin Blackmon and obviously Justin Blackmon and Josh Gordon. Michael Floyd actually got a chance to be good, but he really never panned out talent-wise. But he was such a good receiver at Notre Dame coming out. It's unfortunate, he's a Viking now. Looks like there's new stories about him. He got arrested. Obviously, I think it was a DUI or something like that. So he's under house arrest. He's on parole or something like that. And they tested him for alcohol. He tested positive, which could lead to jail time. I don't know how that's connected to each other. I'm not. Anyway, he might be facing jail time. Is basically this new story, which is unfortunate because the Vikings. I feel like the Vikings are trying to surround Sam Bradford with as much talent as they possibly can. They need to be focused on that offensive line more than the receiver group, because when you look at the Vikings receiver group, you have Laquan Treadwell, who his rookie season played pretty bad. That was just as bad as a wide receiver could have as for a rookie season. And then you have Stephon Diggs, who's a goon, who doesn't get talked about enough. Adam Thielen, who had a breakout season last year. Kyle Rudolph, who was once Pro Bowl MVP, if you can believe that. So he's super talented. So it's not like the Vikings are counting on Michael Floyd to be great. So it's not that big of a deal if you're a Vikings fan. I mean, you definitely have the weapons around, especially Dalvin Cook. You guys just got Dalvin Cook out of the draft, so it's not that bad. You know what I mean? It's not like you guys need him. Actually, you really don't need him. All right, so but again, disappointing career for all three of those guys we talked about. This next piece of news is obviously a big piece of news. The Baltimore Ravens hopefully found some receiver help for Joe Flacco and Jeremy Maclin. Obviously, Jeremy Maclin's another guy who has struggled to stay healthy. Well, he's not compared to the other guys, but he's struggled to stay on the field. And a super talented guy. Should have, if he could have stayed healthy, probably would have had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I could see Jeremy Maclin doing that. But I never considered Jeremy a number one wide receiver. I've never considered him that. I've never. I mean, even in his Philly days, he was, he was basically. I mean, he was the drummer to Deshaun Jackson's guitar. Like he was never the number one guy. I guess in Kansas City he was, but Kansas City really. I mean, obviously Tyreek Hill's. He came just this last season. Point is, never really considered Jeremy Maclin a number one wide receiver. So does this truly help the Baltimore Ravens and their situation down there? Obviously, they lose Steve Smith. Brashard Perryman made some plays last year, but he's got health concerns as well. Is he a number one wide receiver? We really don't know. There's a lot of questions to be answered. They lose Dennis Pitta, and they really were hanging on to Dennis Pitta for a long time. They should have got rid of Dennis Pitta a long time ago, especially this past draft. They should have probably took someone early, especially since the tight ends are so stacked. They should have got Joe Flacco help, but they really didn't. Because this past draft, stacked with defensive talent, really deep receiver draft, really deep tight end draft, and pretty deep running back draft too. So I really think they did a poor job of surrounding Joe Flacco with talent. And their first round pick, Marlon Humphreys, not the best pick in the world for that team. So obviously, Ozzie Newsome is a beast of a GM, so I'm sure he'll. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a head scratcher. So Joe Flacco, that team I really think has taken a step back. I mean, they have Mike Wallace, who I've never really liked. I think he's inconsistent. He had he had a better season than I think a lot of people thought he would have last year, but still, I don't think he's definitely not a number one guy because he's so inconsistent. So, I don't know. Hopefully, Brashard Perryman. I hope none of. I hate the Ravens. I'm just gonna be perfectly frank with Ravens. If you're a Ravens fan watching this, I hate you guys. But, I don't know. It just seems like they did a poor job of making sure their quarterback has help. And Joe Flacco, not the guy who I've never considered Joe Flacco like an Aaron Rodgers who can completely carry an offense. I don't think he can do that. So the Ravens offense, even with the signing of Jeremy Maclin, we'll see. This next piece of news is not good if you're a Saints fan, because this is pretty unfortunate. Obviously, I would say that Drew Brees' pass protection has been a little bit, maybe average, a little bit below average last year. That's the one thing that offense, because that offense is super talented, but that's the one thing that you can take advantage of with that team. This is just even worse news in terms of pass protection. Saints offensive lineman, tackle, Taron Armstead suffers leg injury. He tore his labrum. He's going to be out for 4 to 6 months, which is unfortunate. So he's going to be out all of training camp. And into the season, so that sucks. Not good news for Drew Brees, because that's a huge loss for them. He's really good. He's above average. He's an above average tackle, and he's a left tackle, so that's Drew Brees' blind side. So that's not good. Let's see here. Anquan Bolden looking to play in Florida. Anquan Bolden, I think, let his agent know that he wants to play somewhere close to home. He wants to play where he lives, in his state that he lives in. I don't know if it's his home state. I don't know where Anquan Bolden was born, but he lives in Florida, so he wants to play in Florida. Obviously, when you look at all three Florida teams, the Dolphins, which is my team, we got the big three in Devontae Parker, Jarvis Landry, and Kenny Stills, and then behind them we have a bunch of super talented guys like Leonte Cruz, Sean Scott, Isaiah Ford, Jakeem Grant. Just the list goes on and on and on. Obviously, Drew Morgan, who's had the undrafted free agent out of Arkansas, he's had a really good offseason so far. And then you look at the Buccaneers; they don't need receiver threats. They have Mike Evans on on one side. They have Deshaun Jackson. They have Humphreys in the slot, and then they have O.J. Howard at tight end. So they're not hurting for receiver either, and neither are the Jaguars, who have a big two, and Allen Robinson and Allen Hurns, and behind them they just drafted hopefully their slot guy for the future. I say hopefully like I'm a Jaguars fan, but they're hoping that that's their slot guy for the future, and D.D. Westbrook, who is an absolute beast. That was an underrated steal for them. So, Anquan Bolden, even if he did sign with most of these, I don't even think I definitely wouldn't want him if as a Dolphins fan. I wouldn't want him, and I'm assuming as the other two wouldn't want him either, just because of the young talent that they have there. You want that group to grow together. You want that group to have chemistry together with their quarterback. And you want that group to get reps in games. You don't want some old man coming in here who's past his prime. Even though he did lead the Lions in touchdowns last year and receptions. I think he had 62 receptions and 8 touchdowns. So he didn't have a bad year last year. But how the heck? He's not a Dolphin, that's for sure, because he's not cracking our lineup. And if we did sign him, I would be upset. And then the same thing with the Buccaneers, and maybe the Buccaneers, I could see it, but not really, and the Jaguars definitely not. I think D.D. Westbrook, you got to give those guys playing time. Same thing with the Buccaneers. You got to give those guys playing time. All right, so moving on from that, the Colts have placed Christian Michael on IR. The Colts and running backs, it's fun, it's hilarious. Poor Andrew Luck, man. Hopefully, I hope that I really don't hope, because I'm in the AFC, and the AFC is talented enough, but it scratches your head of what the heck they're doing up there, in Indianapolis. You kind of just kind of shake your head of how but they did get a huge steal in the draft, and Malik Hooker, who's an absolute beast. Okay, I don't know how, if GMs weren't stupid and they were trying to save their jobs, And I'm sorry, but all those people who drafted most of those guys aren't going to work out. Like Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Mitchell Trubisky, most of those guys are not going to work out. All three of those guys, prospects, have a long way to go before they even touch an NFL field, right? So it's interesting. I mean, Malik Hooker is a franchise safety, legitimate franchise safety. He's gonna make. I'm sure he's gonna, unless injuries keep him from the field, from football. He might have a down year if you're a Colts fan because safeties tend to take a while to get their legs under them. Safety is such a cerebral position. You saw that with Landon Collins. He couldn't play fast because he was trying to get acclimated to the NFL game. Once he got acclimated in his second year, he could really use his athleticism and his mind together, and you can combine those two worlds. Malik Hooker might have a slow year because of that, because you usually see that with safeties. In his second year, though, he's going to be a beast, unless he's more far along, because he was a prospect coming out of college. But he's going to really help turn around that Colts defense. And so, yeah, that was a steal. But what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, Christian Michael. I mean, for God's sakes, who is, Andrew Luck has handed the ball off to a lot of different people, including Robert Turbin and, Donald Brown. And Frank Gore's, like, the best, but he was out of his prime, even though he got back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. That's, it's crazy, man. Anyway, Brown's interested in Eric Decker. The Cleveland Browns are interested in Eric Decker. Again, for Cleveland, with the news, I'm pretty sure Josh Gordon's going to be suspended, or he's not. I can't remember that. I cannot remember fully on that one. You guys are going to have to tell me down in the comment section below. But their receiver core is pretty talented. Kenny Britt, who had a really good season with the Rams, but he was the number one option. Then you have Corey Coleman, who unfortunately got his rookie season cut because of injuries. So they have a talented receiver core with Josh Gordon, Kenny Britt, and Corey Coleman. I'm pretty sure Josh Gordon. I don't remember. Did he get another? I can't remember with Josh. What the heck's going on with Josh Gordon? But I get Eric Decker. Just in terms of a player that Eric Decker is, he's a great player. I mean, he's probably one of the better twos in the NFL if you can get him. I think he's better than Jeremy Maclin. I don't know why. I mean, I just think he's a better player. And because he's gonna stay healthy. I mean, obviously Eric Decker, he dealt with injuries last season, but he doesn't have the injury history that Jeremy Maclin does. So I think Eric Decker, if any team got him, he's a big body. He's a red zone threat. He's a really good route runner. He's smooth. He can move the chains. He catches anything that's thrown at him. He's got great hands. And he's underratedly fast. So Eric Decker, great player. And whoever gets him is getting a deal there. All right, so moving on from that. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, good news for you. You have signed David Njoku, who, again, David Njoku, going to be a great player for you guys. I think, a lot of people complain about his drops that he had. I'm not really, his run after the catch ability is insane because he's such a big dude and he's so athletic. Obviously, he's going to be a great red zone threat. Hugh Jackson's offensive mind, he's one of the best offensive minds in the league. I would definitely put him in my top 5. I might even put him and Kyle Shanahan, man. And then, I'm not even being biased when I say this, but I think Adam Gase is by far the smartest, offensive mind in the league. But, him in that offense, David Njoku, with hopefully you guys start, if you're a Browns fan, you're listening to this, hopefully you guys start. In my mind, I think if DeShone Kizer earns it, he should start. That's deadly, man. That's a deadly receiver. I mean, that's a super underrated offense, man. David Njoku. If you're a Giants fan, you have signed Evan Ingram, who is a guy. He ran a faster 40 time than DeAndre Hopkins, and AJ Green. So that's pretty damn good if you're a tight end, and he's a big dude, and he is not one of those guys you just use his athleticism. He knows how to run routes. So he's got great hands. So he's an absolute threat for Eli Manning. No excuses for Eli this upcoming season with Evan Ingram, Brandon Marshall, Sterling Shepard, who for some reason continues to be swept under the rug. He had an absolute beast of a rookie year last year. He's such a good receiver. I love Sterling Shepard. And then obviously Brandon Marshall comes in, and they still have Will Ty and Larry Donnell. So they have a really good offense. And on Paul Perkins and the kid out of Clemson coming out of the backfield, his name's escaping me right now. So yeah, I mean, Eli has no excuses. Obviously, Eric Flowers is still on the team, so not that I'm an Eli Manning apologist, because I mean, it isn't. I mean, his. Oh, I forgot to mention Odell Beckham. I'm a crazy person, but not to be an Eli Manning apologist, because I tend to be on Eli Manning's side sometimes. I know a lot of people don't think. I think they think he's washed up, but when you're that age, you see this with Carson Palmer, you see this with Phillip Rivers. When you're that age and you're not a mobile quarterback and you can't break the pocket, what the heck are you like? What do you expect? Like, the offensive line is such an underrated thing among casual fans. You guys don't understand like how important the lines on both sides of the ball are. Like, that's how you build your team. If you want a consistent team, especially, that's how you build your team. Your team will not be consistent if your lines aren't good at all. They just won't be. Because, and same thing with Eli. His pass protection has been very bad. It has been. I mean, Eric Flowers has been a sorry excuse for an offensive lineman so far in his career. So it is what it is. I'm not trying to say Eli doesn't deserve the hate, but hey, whatever. Lions. The Detroit Lions are in discussion. If you're a Detroit Lions fan, this next news story, I should say, if you're a Detroit Lions fan, you are discussing a new contract with Gulliver Quinn. Gulliver. I always say Gulliver. It's Gulliver, I'm pretty sure. Gulliver Quinn, who has been a really good veteran safety for a very long time. His best season was Sue's last year with the Lions when they should have beat the Cowboys in the I think it was the wild card round, and they got robbed on that pass interference call. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, I mean, Detroit Lions, their defense should be better this upcoming season. They're one of the more underrated teams in the the NFC North. They don't get talked about a lot because I mean, when you look at their defense, you got Ziggy Ansah. They drafted God, what the heck? I did so much crap in pre-draft work on him, and I'm literally, I can't remember his name right now. The linebacker out of Florida, Jared Davis. Yeah, Jared Davis. I was thinking Denzel Perryman for some reason, but Jared Davis, he should help out that defense beyond. And people forget about Ziggy Ansah, but Ziggy Ansah, if he was healthy, he would be a better player. So the Lions have a really underrated team. They just need to keep it together. So yeah. They just need to stay healthy too, and they really improved the offensive line with they signed Greg Robinson that the LA Rams finally just gave up on, and the kid, the former Alabama product who the Bills drafted in the first round, goes to them too. So they have a lot of depth on that offensive line. Obviously, I think T.J. Lang, it wasn't T.J. Lang, it was Tyler Decker, I think, hurt his shoulder. It was Tyler Decker who hurt his shoulder. So they added a bunch of depth there. So their offensive line is one of the better ones. It's going to be a really underrated, talented coach. They're probably going to need some time to play together, but when they get the ball rolling, that offensive line is underratedly good. With Chance Warmack, with the signing of Chance Warmack, they've got a lot of talent there. Sheldon Richardson, God, this is a hilarious headline. Sheldon Richardson wants to stay with the Jets. Bull crap. Okay, that's not everything we've heard from the Jets. Well, if you want to stay, they don't want you, Sheldon. I can tell you that right now. Obviously, he's in a contract year. Great player, former defensive rookie of the year. A lot of people forget that. I don't know, like, Sheldon Richardson's a great player. Like, he really is a great player. But he just has the work ethic of a sloth. He just doesn't work hard. So, I mean, that obviously has frustrated Todd Bowles. Same thing with Muhammad Wilkerson, though. Like, these two, both of those guys, and Leonard, obviously I'm not counting Leonard Williams in this, but that defensive line is really talented. But they just didn't. They're hoping Jamal Adams fixes the culture. We've been through this a million times. But it is interesting. Sheldon Richardson, if you trade for him right now, which he's still, the Jets are trying their hardest to get rid of him. You're just renting him for 1 year. Like, I've heard the rumors that he's going to be a Colt. That would be a good fit because they do run a 3-4 down there in Indianapolis. So that could be a good fit for him. Yeah. I mean, I mean, whatever. I don't think he's going to be a Jet. I think he's definitely going to move on. I don't know. If you trade for him, you're dumb. The best thing to do is wait for free agency to come around because you're just renting him for 1 year. If you're a David Harris fan, David Harris not planning to retire. So there you go. There's a little news there. Obviously, he felt betrayed by his longtime team in the New York Jets, and they did not like how they handled his release. Dwight Freeney wants to play in 2017. Dwight Freeney, man, I should probably slow down. Next news story: Dwight Freeney wants to play in 2017. Obviously, one of the better situational pass rushers of the last 2 seasons. Obviously, he did it with the Cardinals, and then he went to Atlanta and did it for them, and he's very good at that. He's a very good third down rush package guy. Very good sub package guy. So if you're a team looking for a little bit more pop in your speed rush, there you go. Let's see here. Kenny Vaccaro set deadline for extension talks. Interesting. Kenny Vaccaro has had an underrated career, I guess you could say, but he's kind of been blanketed in a terrible Saints defense. Like, if he was on a better defense, like, let's say he's on the Denver Broncos, I think he would make a lot of Pro Bowls. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Let's see here if there's anything else. Obviously, we talked about the Lions acquired Greg Robinson and Cyrus. God, I can never say his name right. Cyrus Kanjaro, or however you say his name, former Bill. This next news story: the Seahawks haven't discussed extension talks with Cam Chancellor, which is interesting. Obviously, that's been going on for what now, like 2 years. They need to get that worked out there. The Jets. If you're a Jets fan, next news story. I don't know. I have to say. I don't have to say. Jets working out Bobby Rainey and Dexter McCluster. And 2 former Bobby Rainey, obviously coming out of Kentucky. He was underrated. He was a pretty good 1-2 punch with Doug Martin, and then Dexter McCluster. He's had a pretty decent career. So there you go. If you're a Redskins fan, D'Angelo Hall takes a pay cut. It's insane to me. If you guys can tell me, here's an NFL trivia of the crapping week. Tell me who drafted D'Angelo Hall, and you will get a sticker. I don't know, but it's not hard. I don't know if you've been a long time NFL fan. It's not hard, but he's played for a lot of different teams. Let's see here. What else we got? Matt Jones. If you guys remember Matt Jones, he had that one good year with the Redskins, and then really had a terrible year the following year. And Fat Robert Kelly really took over the job, but Matt Jones asked Redskins to cut him, or his agent asked the Redskins to cut him, which is interesting. If you're a Steelers fan, you have signed your first-round pick in T.J. Watt. A lot of people think he's a little bit overrated. We will see. I don't think he's. I mean, his first year as a starter at outside linebacker did a tremendous job, and no other team fits him as much as the Steelers do. So he should have a great start to his career with the Steelers and Blitzburger, because they still blitz. I mean, I know Bill Cowher's no longer there, but they still blitz. Let's see here. And they still play a ton of zone, which same Steelers, same Dick LeBeau, stuff there. Obviously, Odell Beckham. No real new news on Odell Beckham in the contract thing. He deserves the money. I would pay him all the money that he would want, because he is that guy, man, who helps you get over the top. The Broncos are not interested in an Eric Decker reunion. Interesting. I wouldn't. I mean, with Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas, I mean, why wouldn't you want? I mean, Eric Decker. Not. I mean, why not put Eric Decker back there? Maybe play him in the slot, because he can play the slot. He's pretty dang good. He's quick. Let's see here. Colts workout. Oh yeah. We just talked about how the Giants still have Larry Donnell. They do not. I forgot about that. The Colts are working out tight end Larry Donnell, he's had an okay career. Jason Peters, if you're Eagles fan, this is interesting. Jason Peters wants a restructured contract, which he's so old. Another trivia of the week. Tell me who drafted Jason Peters. So yeah, there you go. I think we're almost done here. Let's see here. If you're a Texans fan, Dwayne Brown not expected at minicamp. It's not that big of a deal. Let's see here. Eagles were runners up for Jeremy Maclin. That's interesting. They don't really need him. Obviously, they surrounded Carson Wentz, their young quarterback, with talent, which is something you love to see. Especially the Raiders did the same thing with Derek Carr in his second year. They really surrounded him with great players like Michael Crabtree, and they got Kelechi Osemele, which I'm pretty sure was his third year. But Rodney Hudson, they did a good job of recognizing what they had in Derek Carr and quickly surrounding him with just as much talent as they possibly could. So they obviously drafting Amari Cooper, and so they did in his second year. So yeah, they did the best that they did. I'm stuttering. They did the best that they could. Same thing with the Eagles. They did the same thing that the Raiders did. Reggie McKenzie did with the Oakland Raiders. They They recognized what they had in Derek Carr, and they surrounded him. I don't know why that was so hard for me to get out. And then Philly did the same thing. They surrounded. They already had a talented offensive line, but then they surrounded him with weapons. They really did not have any receiving threat other than Jordan Matthews. They traded for Darrell Green Beckham in the middle of the year, who has had an extremely disappointing career so far. I mean, he looked like he was going to be out of Mizzou. He looked like he was going to be a beast, and that was all based on upside, and none of it was there. Everybody thought he would grow into a football player. Never really did. So that's unfortunate. Maybe he still can. We'll see. But they did a good job. They got Alshon Jeffrey in free agency, Torrey Smith. I mean, they did a really good job of surrounding Carson Wentz with, especially and Jordan Matthews, a great receiver. One of the more talented guys in the league. One of the more underrated talented guys in the league. He's going to get a whole lot more looks now because he's not going to be double teamed. And he's probably, now that he is number 2, he's probably the best in number 2 in the league. So yeah. Let's see here. That's about it, guys. I think that's it. I think, hang on, we might have more. Okay, here's the big news story. Chargers and Melvin Ingram agree to an extension. If you're a Dolphins fan, that was the biggest tease in the world. If you remember, obviously I don't know if we were crossing our fingers as Dolphins fans, hoping that he would become a Dolphin. But there was the rumor. He said that he wanted to play for Miami. Didn't ever really happen, which is unfortunate because Melvin Ingram's a great player. Don't really need him though, and he would have been switching to from a 3-4 John Pagano system to a crap and 4-3 system with Matt Burke. I'm sure Matt would have figured something out with him, but I really don't think it would have made a whole lot of it would have been a good transition for him. So we have something about Darrelle Revis here. I'm trying to see something happen with Darrelle Revis. Let's see here. Darrelle Revis, come on. This is what you guys wanted long time ago, and I was like, you want to do podcasts? You're like, yeah. I was like, all right, I'm not going to edit them. You're like, okay. This is what happens. Okay. Let's see here. The Cowboys have a fair amount of cap space, but they are reportedly uninterested in adding Darrelle Revis to the defensive backfield. That doesn't mean, however, that certain Dallas players don't want to see Revis in silver or blue this fall. Star wide receiver Des Bryant tweeted Revis yesterday saying, Dallas, ? Promise you are going to love what we got going around here. Your attitude fits our culture. Waiting. While the Dallas Cowboys are pleased to see that Bryant is happy in Dallas, Pro Football Sharon Williams confirms that the earlier report that the team is unlikely to sign Revis, the Cowboys signed Nolan Carroll and drafted 3 corners this offseason, and they have chosen to build through the draft in recent years rather than sign expensive free agents. So there you go. So he's not going to be a Cowboy, but I guess there was a little bit of a connection there. So that is going to be it, guys. That has been your NFL news for this week. Not a whole lot going on. I mean, I had to some of this stuff, guys. I had to pull out. It was like pulling a rabbit out of my hat. Okay, to talk about. This is the off season. It sucks. Minicamp starts. There's nothing really to talk about until preseason NFL starts. We can start talking about breakout rookie. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So I am Skaxer23. Remember, guys, this uploads every single Saturday. If you're an NFL fan. I guess hopefully you like this podcast and you subscribe to see this podcast every other Saturday, or every single Saturday, not every other Saturday. And I will see you guys in the next one.